in the studio as once before. We got a few treats for y'all, so y'all just bear with me as I set this up. We don't have much time, but I try to move as quickly as possible. And as always, I don't have a cameraman with me. I'm doing this by myself, so just bear with me. Live in the studio, but we're not gonna let anything stop us. We're gonna continue on. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Okay. Mic check 1 2. Mic check. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check. All right. We're gonna get into it, y'all. First, I'm gonna open up with a book that I pulled from the library called The Hebrew Word Study. Okay. And I'm going to give you a chance to actually see inside of the book. Okay, it says the Hebrew word translated melted as dalaf. This word actually has more of connotation of shedding tears or weeping or of raindrops. In this verse, dalaf is in a qual verbal form, which means it is just a normal verb with no intensification. It is a picture of tears shed gently out of feeling and deep sorrow. Since it is the soul weeping, the tears do not necessarily have to be literal. Think of the familiar saying, I'm laughing on the outside, but crying on the inside. Okay. You got to understand that This is in Hebrew. All right. And the Lord called unto Adam, Genesis chapter 3, 9 through 10, and said unto him, where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. Okay. So this is the Hebrew translation for being naked, where Adam said, look, I was naked and I was afraid and I hid myself. It says, I have discovered that when I study scriptures with the purpose of learning about God's heart, I begin to find answers to questions that have troubled me in the past. For instance, somehow the idea of God wandering around the Garden of Eden, apparently unable to find Adam and having to call out to him, hoping for some response so he could locate him, just never seemed to make much sense to me. I mean, if God had problems locating Adam because he was hiding in some bushes, that does not inspire much confidence that God can keep track of me 24/7. A cry of grief and mourning. Practically every modern English version translates the Hebrew word ahaka in our study passage as where are you? But there is a rendering that would not make more sense, at least to me, in my search for God's heart. Translators will not use this rendering for two reasons. The first is that there are no English words to adequately communicate this alternative translation. The second is that even if we found some English words that could work to describe the emotion expressed, we certainly would not want to ascribe such an emotion to God, because it would come out something like this. Oh, like, woe is me. Like, woe is me. In your Bible, you turn to the book of Lamentations, and your version includes the Hebrew rendering for Lamentations. You will note that it is the same word translated, where are you, with just a difference in vowel pointing so that it spells Ahika rather than Ahika. The root word means a lamentation or a cry of grief and mourning. Can you picture God wandering through the garden, weeping and saying, oh, woe is me? But as I have previously emphasized, if we believe we are created in God's image, then we have a heart like his, a heart that can be broken. Haven't you ever lamented over a broken relationship? Most Christians seem to have a hard time picturing God as a weeping God over his lost children. Okay. Hence, we use the more appropriate rendering of where are you? But while Ahika as a interrogative, it is also an expression of grief. So what is causing this grief? Adam and Eve were not hiding from God. They were hiding from the presence of God. They were willfully separated themselves from his presence. It was not their sin in itself that separated them from God, but rather their guilt. God didn't remove himself from them. They removed themselves from God. All right. That's from the Hebrew study word. We're going to look up one more annotation. Okay. And then we're going to move to the root of the lame horse, Yagon. Okay. For my life is spent with grief, and my years with sighing. My strength faileth because of mine iniquity, and my bones are consumed away. Psalms 31 and 10. David is saying here that his life is filled with grief. Some translations use the word pain. Others use the term analogy sorrow, while one uses misery. In our English language, there is a differentiation, a difference between grief, pain, sorrow, and misery. All right. You can be in pain if you hit your thumb with a hammer, but you may not be in grief. You can be in misery without having sorrow or grief, but why split hairs? David essentially is saying that he is feeling absolutely lousy and horrible. Okay, let's put a pause in there. I want to actually just check out this book a little bit. Check this word out. It's a Hebrew English definition from where the words that it's a Hebrew study Bible. Okay, kind of like the Strong's study Bible. If you know about Strong's study Bible, the wounded lamb. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arm. Isaiah 40:11. The Hebrew words for feed and shepherd in our study text are the same, although it is used as a verb and the other as a noun. It is up to the translator to make the application so that it makes sense. The Hebrew word rendered or shepherd is raha. Okay. While this term can mean shepherd, its Semitic root is the word ra. The Semitic root is the word ra. Which, as we saw in an earlier study, is the prime Hebrew word for evil. While this term can mean shepherd, its Semitic root is the word ra, the wounded lamb, okay? While this term, the Hebrew root is what? The Semitic root is the word raw. Check that out. Okay. Which, as we saw in an earlier study, is the prime Hebrew word for evil. There are many words in Hebrew that begin with the letters Resh, Ayin, or Ra'ah. Does and each word reflect a different type of evil. Ra'ah contains the idea of consuming passion. As I previously wrote, a consuming passion can be evil if it's a passion of something that is not of God, such as an abuse of alcohol, drugs, or sex. We would use the word ra'ah today to describe an addiction. A drug addict might sacrifice his job, his resources, and his family and friends in order to satisfy his passion for drugs. Ra'ah. Ra'ah. Last but not least, check this one out. Tazak, which means laughter or holy laughter. Tazak. When the Lord says, I'm going to laugh in the last days, I'm going to laugh at your calamity, is Tazak. God said, is anything too hard for the Lord? Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. Genesis chapter 18, 14 through 15. Okay. When God told Abraham that Sarah was going to have a child at the age of 90, Sarah was listening in on the conversation and she laughed within herself. Genesis 18:12. In our study passage, the Hebrew word translated laugh in Genesis 18:15 is tazak. Okay. Lexicographers have debated the nature of this word to determine what of laughter Sarah expressed. Was it mockery? Was it the was it inconsiderate idea of a 90-year-old woman having a child? So something must have just struck her funny bone. Okay, so check this out. Let's put that to the side. Let's check something out, y'all. I want y'all to see something. I got 3 books here that I kind of want to just touch on a little bit. Check this book out. It's called The Biblical World. The Biblical World. All right. I want y'all to check out some of these figurations, hieroglyphics. things of this nature. Check out some of these things that are on these Egyptians and see if that reminds you of something. Okay, it reads Canaanite foes of Seti the first. A fortress situated on a hill bears the name, the town of the Canaan. The bearded foes of the Egyptian pharaoh are the Swash Bedouin. The Swash Bedouin. Okay, the relief is from the exterior of the north wall of the temple of Karnak. You're not paying attention to something. Pay attention to the hairline, especially the back, to the ears. Those are taper fades, man. Anybody ever had a taper fade? Those are taper fades. Yeah, something like a do-rag, okay? That's what he's wearing, something like a do-rag. Okay, that's like a war axe. Okay. Okay, after Tutmosis the fourth, Amenhotep, the third, the latter son, Amenhotep the fourth, ascended the throne. Okay, he deserted Thebes and built a new capital, which he called Akhet at 10. Okay, modern tell El Armena in Middle Egypt, Armenia in Egypt. And he and his beautiful wife, Nefertiti, launched a religious revolution. He adopted the worship of Aton, a god of Heliopolis, discarded that Amen of Thebes, and changed his name to Akhenaten. Akhenaten. Okay. Contention naturally arose between Akhenaten and the priests of Amen and Thebes. While he was enraged in religious reforms, the possessions of the empire in Palestine and in Syria were falling away. The death of Akhenaten dealt a fatal blow to the religious formation. So where did religion come from? It came from Egypt. So where did religion come from? It came from Egypt. When people say they're spiritual, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. You know, both spirituality and religion both went hand in hand. You know, you was not spiritual if you were not religious. You do know that, right? You're not religious if you're not spiritual. You're not spiritual if you're not religious. Religion and spirituality goes hand in hand. They're two, one and the same. As Christ said, I am with my Father and my Father is with me. I go and I sit with my Father in his throne. And if you keep my commandments like you say that you love me, then you will sit within my throne as I am with my Father and I sit in his throne. So you shall sit with me. So this is where you get the whole idea of sitting on the lap of Santa Claus, you know. Okay, that's where you get that from. The international correspondence of Ahimhotep the third and his Amenhotep the fourth, or Akhenaten, was discovered in 1887 in Tel Armenia. These archives were in the form of baked clay tablets, written mostly in Akkadian language. These tablets mentioned in Habiru, who were making trouble in the Palestine and Assyria, who are probably related in the name to the Hebrews. What? Who are probably related to the name of the Hebrews. Do I need to go back over it? So y'all, listen. When you get a chance to check this book out, I'm telling you, man, it's gonna blow your freaking mind. This is what I'm about. See, when you say you a 7-day Adventist, this is what it's about. Here's what it's about. That's what it's about. And see, I'm in analytics, so you can see what it's all about. Analytics. You can see what it's all about. Analytics is one of the greatest critics in archaeology. So you can see, you know what I'm saying? Now, let's go back up. These tablets mentioned in Habiru, who were making trouble in Palestine and Syria, who are probably related in name to the Hebrews, as some associated the rebellious activity of the Habiru with the Hebrew conquest of Palestine, and so support the 15th century date for the Exodus. The what? 15th century date for the Exodus. What? For the 15th century date for the Exodus. Okay. However, the Habiru were active in a much wider area than the Hebrews. The second successor of Akhenaten, his son-in-law, Tut Akhenaten, or was obliged to relinquish autism. Autism. You have autism. That's what they autism. You have autism. Okay. His name was changed to Tuk Amun. Tuk Amun. Beautiful in the life of Amun, he was also forced to abandon the royal residence in Akhenaten and to restore the court of thieves. Did y'all get that? Y'all can't read as as slow as I'm reading, then you ain't got it. All right, because I'm trying to take my time, but at the same time, I'm trying to hurry up because I only got but such a short time in this studio. Okay. Well, that's on page 213 of the book, The Biblical World. Okay. The Biblical World. And it's by Charles F. Pfeiffer. All right, now that's just one thing. Now, did you happen to take a look at the did you happen to take a look at the dark? And I mean the blackness. Did you happen to take a look at the blackness? No, you didn't. You didn't pay attention to the features. You have to pay attention to the features of the paintings and the hieroglyphics, the drawings and the carvings of the wall. If you don't pay attention to the features, then how can you see your history in Egypt? Okay. Yeah, it just got through showing you in archaeology that the Hebrews and the Egyptians were family. They were related. They were closely related. Why? Because Shem, Ham, and Japheth were sons of Noah. Okay. Ham became the progenitor of the darker races such as the Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Ethiopians, the Syrians, the Syrians, the Babylonians, all of the Hamites, okay, were of those races. Remember, Abraham didn't even have a son until after Egypt was not only built but in world power. Abraham, then Isaac, then Jacob. Jacob had, okay, Jacob called Israel. Then, okay, listen, let's not go back over. Let's just keep on going. All right, check this out. In the Book of the Dead, all right, this is a part of the Book of the Dead. The I'm still with the biblical world, biblical archaeology. Okay, you got Babylon. That's why you have the head of man with a lion's body. That's Babylon. Okay, you have this guy here, which is Ashtar or Ishtar or the Queen of Heaven. Okay, Ashtoreth. It's what this is. Okay. And you have the Egyptian mummified pharaohs, okay, or the greats that will be so-called next to the gods. So check out the hieroglyphics on the Egyptian that was on the walls, okay, for the Egyptian Book of the Dead, depictions of balances, courtesies, inside of the British Museum. What? Inside of the British Museum. Okay. So the history of Egypt is not being hid away from us. It just was taken away from us, or would you say identity theft? You know, can you say identity theft? Okay. In 1906, Hugo Winkler of Berlin began the excavation of Boxkoi. The Hittite studies were significantly advanced in his discovery of a collection of cuneiform tablets with inscriptions in many languages, including one that proved to be the tongue of the ancient Hittites. The depiction of the Hittites was the combined work of many scholars, with a major contribution provided by Frederick Horizani, or how a Czechoslovakian scholar. Okay, the documents discovered at Boskovi, however you say that word, okay, included the Hittite legends and myths, historical annals, and a law of code or conduct. The latter actually formed a body of legal proceedings which served as a guideline to local judges. The scholars were particularly interested in the discovery of a copy of the peace treaty between the Hittite king Hattusilus III, and he reigned from 1275, I say, BC, 1275 BC to 1250 BC. Okay. That's before Christ. And the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, the oldest such treaty known to a student of ancient history, and Egyptian text of the same treaty is also extant, with brief interruptions during war years, or the years of war. The German Orient Society had continued excavation at Bahaski to the present day. See also the Hittites bibliography. Okay, Hugo Winkler and P. Puckstein. Excavations in the summer of 1907, Smithsonian Institute Annual Report 1908 in Washington, 1909 by Hans G. Gutterbach. Okay, participation in the excavation was Turkey Ancient Hattusil, okay, capital of the Hittite Empire, yearbook 1933, with pages 271 to 276, American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia, 1933, by Kirk Bittel. So you got all these different people that played a hand. You have all these, what I'm saying, you have all these different countries and all these different people that came over and received portions of Egyptian, Ethiopian, African, and Jerusalem or Hebrew way of life, literature, law, order, and not to mention idols or gods. In Hebrew case, they only had but one God. And the gods of which they did have that were like the other gods in which the Romans captured, they actually threw down. Okay. And then they set up their gods, which was the Emperor Roman Constantine at that time. And and that was later on after Agrippa passed. You have Emperor Constantine who took order, and that was actually the first time that the Roman Empire actually became uh, converted over to Christianity. But take a look at the features once again. All right, let's continue on. And you can go to your local library, or you can actually order the book if you want. You can order the book. I just wanted y'all to see some of the features. You know, this is actually the symbols which were carved upon uh, the image of the stone. This is the horned animal incised on the limestone slab. This is a specimen of the artwork of the inhabitants of Megiddo before 3000 BC, courtesy of the Oriental Institute. We got these pictures. Okay. Brick making in 18th dynasty Egypt. That's 1450 BC by the date from the tomb of Rekhmire. So as you can see, this was actually an older man. You see how they try to keep his beard and his beard, mustache, and everything that connect is kind of white, but his body's black. So there's full detail right there, okay, of a depiction of what they painted, what they saw. Okay. And you can see that there's actually something back there behind him. It's either scribbled out or scratched out or maybe time wore out or something. But who knows what that is. Really can't make it out very well, but I do see symbols of birds back there. Let's see. All right, y'all. I'm a little exhausted, man. I'm finna cut this short, you know. So anyway, I hope y'all get a chance to check that book out. I'm actually gonna do a little bit more reading. Um I'm not in a lot of energy today. I'm actually exhausted. So just wanted to show y'all a little bit of something that I'm actually reading up on and everything. Just you know, and I hope y'all have a wonderful time when it comes to the Passover. Um, Shalom.